Wait. Stop everything. Because what I'm about to tell you will make you question everything you know about family secrets, about hidden identities, about what happens when the past crashes into your future on the most important day of your life. She is getting married today. She has been planning this wedding for a year. 300 people are invited. Everything is supposed to be perfect. Everything is supposed to be the beginning of her perfect life. But 3 weeks before the ceremony, something unexpected happened. She was walking through the city when she saw him, a man sleeping on a park bench. Thin. Weathered. Worn. He looked like he hadn't had a decent meal in months. She sat down next to him. She talked to him. She learned his name and his story. He told her he had lost everything 5 years ago. He had been living on the streets ever since. He was completely alone. She felt something shift inside her. She felt called to do something. So she did something that nobody expected. She invited him to her wedding. Her mother said no. Absolutely not. This stranger had no place at her wedding. But she insisted. It was non-negotiable. So he came. He was cleaned up for the ceremony. He wore a suit she helped him find. He was given a seat near the back. The ceremony began. She walked down the aisle. Her fiancé was waiting at the altar. Everything was perfect. The vows were exchanged. The rings were presented. And then the priest said the words, "If anyone here has any objection to this union, speak now or forever hold your peace." And he stood up. The entire church gasped. He walked toward the altar. His face showed emotion. Pain, shock, recognition. He looked at the groom. And he said something that would change everything. "I object because that is my son. And he doesn't know who I am." And with that revelation, the groom fainted. He collapsed. She was left standing at the altar in her wedding dress, realizing that the man she was about to marry had been keeping an enormous secret from her. This is the story of what happened next. This is the story of how a stranger became the most important person at a wedding. This is the story of family secrets, hidden identities, and what happens when the past refuses to stay buried. But it's also a story about redemption, about second chances, about what it means to be a father, and whether you can ever come back from abandoning your child. If you've ever wondered what you would do if someone from your past suddenly appeared, if you've ever thought about what secrets you might be keeping, if you've ever wondered what family really means, this story is for you. Rate this from 0 to 10. Tell me if she was right to invite a stranger to her wedding. Tell me if the homeless man was right to reveal himself the way he did. Tell me if family secrets are worth keeping. But most importantly, if you discovered on your wedding day that your fiancé had been keeping this from you, would you marry him anyway? Or would you run? Because she had to make that choice. And what she decided will shock you. Let's find out what happens when the past crashes into the future. She wasn't supposed to meet him. She was walking through the city on a Tuesday morning, heading to a wedding dress fitting. She was thinking about the ceremony. She was thinking about how perfect everything was going to be. And then she saw him. He was sleeping on a park bench. So thin his bones seemed to protrude through his skin. Wearing clothes that were falling apart. A shopping cart next to him filled with everything he owned. She should have kept walking. She should have minded her own business. She should have pretended she hadn't seen him. But she stopped. She sat down on the bench next to him. She waited until he woke up. When his eyes opened, he looked at her with confusion. "Can I help you?" She said, I noticed you sleeping here. I wanted to make sure you were okay." He sat up slowly. "I'm fine. Just tired." She asked how long he had been living on the streets. He paused. 5 years. Maybe longer. I've lost track of time. She asked his name. He said it was David. She sat with him for an hour that morning. She listened to his story. He had been a construction worker. He had a wife and a child. He lost a job and couldn't find another one. He started drinking. His wife left him. He lost custody of his child. He spiraled into homelessness and addiction. He said, "I had a son. I haven't seen him since he was 5 years old. That was 23 years ago. I don't even know if he remembers me. She felt something break inside her. She felt the weight of his loneliness. She felt the tragedy of a man who had lost everything, including his own child. She said, "You deserve a second chance. Everyone deserves a second chance." He said, "Not everyone. Some people just mess everything up." She said, "What if you experienced one good thing? What if you were treated like you matter?" He looked at her like she was crazy. "Why are you being kind to me? You don't know me." She said, "I'm about to get married in 3 weeks. And I want to celebrate that by doing something good. I want to invite you to my wedding." He said, "That's insane. I'm homeless. I'm a stranger." She said, "You're not a stranger to me anymore." Her family thought she had lost her mind. Her mother said, "Absolutely not. We are not having him at your wedding." Her father said, "Who is this person? Why would you invite a complete stranger?" Her sister said, "What is wrong with you? This is your wedding day. It's supposed to be about you and your fiancé, not about charity." But she was firm. "He's coming to the wedding. That's final." Her fiancé had a different reaction. He said, "If it's important to you, then it's important to me." She was grateful. She was relieved. She felt like he understood her desire to do something good. She spent the next 3 weeks preparing. She brought him to a shelter. She helped him get cleaned up. She found him appropriate clothes. She visited regularly. She listened to his stories. She heard more about his past. She learned that he had been a good father before everything fell apart. She learned that he had loved his son more than anything in the world. One day she said, "Do you ever think about finding your son? Do you think he would want to know you?" He said, "I wouldn't even know where to start. And even if I found him, why would he want anything to do with me? I abandoned him. I'm a failure." She said, "You're not nothing. You're someone who made mistakes and has been paying for them for 23 years. Maybe it's time to try to make things right." He said, "You're kind. But some things can't be fixed." The day of the wedding arrived. She picked him up in a car. He was wearing a suit, the first suit he had worn in decades. He looked like a different person. She said, "You look handsome." He said, "I feel like a fraud. I don't belong at this wedding." She said, "You belong exactly where I say you belong." They arrived at the church. The wedding was beautiful. Everything was exactly as she had imagined. She walked down the aisle. Her fiancé was waiting at the altar. He smiled as she approached. The ceremony began. The vows were exchanged. The rings were presented. And then the priest said the words, "If anyone here has any objection to this union, speak now or forever hold your peace." Silence. And then he stood up slowly. The entire church turned to look at him. 300 people suddenly focused their attention on the man in the back row. Her mother gasped. Her father stood up. Her sister looked like she was about to have a heart attack. He walked toward the altar. His legs were shaking. His hands were shaking. But his eyes were clear. He looked at the groom. And he said something that stopped time. "I object because that is my son. And he doesn't know who I am." For a moment, there was complete silence. Complete disbelief. Complete shock. And then her fiancé fainted. He actually collapsed on the floor in front of 300 people. She caught him as he fell. She was left holding him in her arms, in her wedding dress, completely confused. Paramedics rushed forward. They helped him to his feet. He was conscious but dazed. He looked at the homeless man like he was seeing a ghost. The priest said, "Perhaps we should take a break." The ceremony stopped. She was escorted to a side room. Her fiancé was taken to another room. The homeless man was questioned by church staff. She found herself alone for the first time that day. She realized that everything she thought she knew about her fiancé had been a lie. She realized he had never told her about his father. She realized he had hidden this enormous part of his life from her. She sat in her wedding dress, alone, and she cried. She demanded answers. She wasn't going to accept excuses. She wasn't going to accept apologies. She needed to understand how the man she was about to marry had kept something this enormous from her. She confronted him in the room where they had been waiting to continue the ceremony. The wedding dress hung on her like a ghost of the day that was supposed to happen. "Who is that man?" she asked. "And why did he say he was your father?" He couldn't speak. His face was white. His hands were shaking. His entire body was in shock from what had just happened in front of 300 people. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he spoke. "He is my father. He was a construction worker. He left when I was 5 years old. I haven't seen him since." She felt the words like a physical blow. She had just invited this man's own father to his wedding. She had brought his father into this space. She had done the thing that his entire adult life had been designed to avoid. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. "We're about to get married and you never mentioned this?" He said, "Because I was ashamed. Because he abandoned me. Because I didn't want you to think I was like him. Because I've spent my entire life trying to forget about him and move on." She listened to the fear in his voice. She understood that his shame was real. But she also understood something else. His shame had made him dishonest with her. His shame had made him hide a fundamental part of who he was. She said, "So you just never mentioned him? You just erased him from your history? You just pretended he didn't exist?" He said, "Yes. I erased him. I didn't want him to be part of my life. And I certainly didn't want him to be part of my wedding. I didn't want him to be part of anything." She felt something shift inside her. She felt betrayed. She felt lied to. But more than that, she felt the weight of understanding something deeply important. The man she loved had been carrying this secret alone for 23 years. The man she loved had been running from his past the entire time she had known him. She said, "I invited him here because I believed in second chances. I believed that he deserved an opportunity to be part of something good. I believed that a man who had been living on the streets deserved to experience one day where he was treated like he mattered. And you let me do that. You let me invite your father to our wedding and you never told me who he was." He said, "I'm sorry. I should have told you." But she wasn't ready to accept that apology. An apology meant nothing right now. An apology was just words. She needed more. She said, "Yes, you should have. You should have trusted me enough to tell me the truth about him. You should have given me the choice to either support him or not. You should have let me decide whether I wanted to help him knowing who he was. Instead, you lied to me by omission. And that's still a lie." She paused. She looked at him directly. She continued, "I need you to understand something. I don't know if I can trust you anymore. I don't know if I can marry someone who can keep something this enormous from me. I don't know if I can build a life with someone who runs from his past instead of facing it." And then she walked out of the room. She found him in the hallway. The homeless man. The man who had just upended everyone's life. He looked like he was in shock. He looked like he couldn't believe what he had just done. She said, "Your son didn't know you were going to be here." He said, "I didn't plan to say anything. I was going to sit quietly in the back. I was going to just be at the wedding and observe the life my son had built without me. But when the priest asked if anyone objected, something inside me just broke. Something needed him to know the truth. Something inside me needed him to know that I existed. That I had come back." She could see the pain in his face. She could see the decades of regret compressed into this single moment. She said, "He's terrified of you. He's built his entire identity around rejecting you. He's spent 23 years trying to prove that he's nothing like you. And now you've destroyed that. You've forced him to confront the one thing he's been running from." He said, "I know. I left him. I'm the reason he's like this. I'm the reason he's afraid. I'm the reason he can't trust. I'm the reason he kept this secret from the woman he loves. She looked at him. She saw something that she hadn't expected to see. She saw genuine remorse. She saw genuine pain. She saw genuine love for a son he had lost. She said, "Do you understand what you've done? You've destroyed a wedding. You've exposed a secret that was going to fester anyway. You've forced your son to face something that he wasn't ready to face." He said, "I know." She said, "And do you also understand that this might be exactly what he needed? Do you understand that facing the truth, as painful as it is, might be the only way he can actually move forward? Do you understand that you're coming back, showing up at this wedding despite everything, might be the catalyst he needs to finally let go of the shame that's been defining him?" He looked up at her. Tears were running down his face. She continued, "You're the reason he could still be okay. You're the reason he could still forgive. You're the reason he could still let go of the life he's been living in fear of becoming you." She said, "You both need to talk to each other." She never made it down the aisle as a bride. She stood in the vestry in her wedding dress, $300 of white silk and lace that was supposed to represent new beginnings, and she made a choice that would shock everyone. She decided not to marry him. Not yet. Not until he had dealt with his father. Not until he had confronted the past that he had been running from. She found him in the room where paramedics had brought him after he fainted. She said, "I can't marry you today. Not like this." He looked at her with panic. "What are you saying?" She said, "I'm saying that you're not ready. You have something you need to do first. You have a father that you need to talk to. You have a past that you need to confront. And you can't do that while you're standing at an altar making vows." He said, "You're calling off the wedding?" She said, "I'm postponing it. I'm giving you time to do what you should have done years ago. I'm giving you time to reconcile with your father. I'm giving you time to figure out who you actually are when you're not running." He said, "And if I can't? What if I can't forgive him? What if I can't move past this?" She said, "Then you have bigger problems than marrying me. Then you have work to do that has nothing to do with me. Then you need to figure out how to live with your own past before you invite someone else to be part of your future." She walked out in her wedding dress. She told the guests that the ceremony was postponed. She told them why. She told them the truth about what had happened. And then she did something that nobody expected. She invited him, the homeless man, the man who had just destroyed a wedding, to come home with her. He said, "You're taking me home? On your wedding day?" She said, "You have nowhere else to go. And I believe you deserve a place to stay while you figure out what comes next. I believe you deserve something good after 23 years of sleeping on park benches and carrying the weight of abandoning your child." He moved into her apartment. Over the next few weeks, something unexpected happened. The man and his father began to talk. Really talk. Not polite conversation, but honest, difficult, painful conversation. He said, "Why did you leave?" His father said, "Because I was broken. Because I couldn't be the father you deserved. Because I was addicted. Because I was a coward. Because I couldn't face what I had done, so I ran away instead. And once I started running, I couldn't stop. The further I got from you, the easier it became to pretend you didn't exist." He said, "Do you know what it's like to grow up without a father? Do you know what it's like to think that somehow it's your fault? To think that you must have done something wrong? To think that there must be something broken inside you?" His father said, "No, but I'm beginning to understand." He said, "I spent my entire life thinking I was like you. Thinking I would abandon people like you abandoned me. Thinking that somehow the abandonment gene was inside me, waiting to come out. I was so afraid of being like you that I built walls around myself. And those walls kept everyone out, including the woman I love." His father said, "I'm sorry. I'm so deeply sorry. I can't change what I did. I can't get back the 23 years. But I can be here now. I can acknowledge what I did. I can try to make it right, even though right now just means being honest about how wrong everything was. He said, "Now I'm wondering if maybe you're more than just the man who left. Maybe you're also the man who came back. Maybe you're more than just the father who abandoned me. Maybe you're a man who is broken and is trying to find his way back." His father said, "I don't know if I deserve that kind of grace." He said, "Maybe you don't. But I'm going to give it to you anyway. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve to be free from the fear of being you." So here's what I want you to understand about this story, and I need you to really hear this because this is the most important part. She saw someone who the world had given up on. She saw someone who everyone had dismissed as worthless. She saw someone who deserved a second chance not because of who he was, but because she believed in the possibility of redemption. And she gave him that second chance. She invited him to her wedding. She treated him like he mattered. But what's crucial here is this: she didn't just help him. In helping him, in bringing him to that wedding, she forced her fiancé to confront the truth he had been running from. She forced an entire family to deal with the past instead of burying it. This is the power of compassion. But it's also the power of truth. Sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do is force someone to face what they've been avoiding. Now, let's talk about the secrets. He kept his father's secret. He hid this fundamental part of his identity from the woman he was supposed to marry. He lied, not through words but through omission. He created a version of himself that was incomplete and inauthentic. And in doing that, he prevented her from making an informed choice about her own future. He prevented her from knowing who she was really marrying. He prevented her from making decisions based on complete information. This is what secrets do. Secrets don't protect people. Secrets don't keep relationships safe. Secrets create distance. Secrets create the possibility of betrayal. Secrets are the foundation of lies. If you are keeping a secret from someone you love, if you are hiding a part of yourself, if you are creating an incomplete version of who you are for someone else to love, understand this: you are preventing real connection. You are preventing authentic love. You are preventing the possibility of actually being known. The people who love you deserve to love all of you. The good parts and the broken parts, the successful parts and the shameful parts, the strong parts and the vulnerable parts. And let's talk about his father. He showed up. After 23 years, after abandoning his son, after living on the streets for 5 years in shame and addiction and isolation, he showed up. And he told the truth. He didn't hide. He didn't pretend. He didn't come to the wedding to steal attention or to get something from his son. He came to the wedding and then he revealed himself at the moment when silence would have been easier. That took courage. That took real courage. Not the kind of courage that comes from strength, but the kind of courage that comes from having absolutely nothing left to lose. His son spent his entire life thinking he was like his father. His son was afraid of becoming his father. And that fear shaped every decision he made. That fear kept him from being authentic with the woman he loved. But his father showing up, being honest about his failures, being vulnerable about his past, that gave his son permission to stop being afraid. That gave his son permission to stop running. That gave his son permission to integrate his past instead of denying it. And let's talk about her. She postponed her wedding. She walked away from the day she had been planning for a year. She told 300 people that the ceremony wasn't happening. Do you know what that requires? That requires valuing truth more than appearances. That requires valuing authenticity more than tradition. That requires valuing her own well-being and her partner's actual growth more than the perfect day. She didn't just cancel the wedding out of anger. She postponed it because she understood something fundamental. A marriage built on secrets and running from the past isn't actually a marriage. A marriage that begins with lies isn't actually a union. She chose to be the person who would wait. She chose to be the person who would support him through this process. But she also chose to have boundaries. She chose to say, "I will support you, but I will not marry you until you're actually ready. I will help you, but I will not be complicit in your avoidance." That's what real love looks like. Not love that accepts everything, but love that knows when to say no. So here's what I want you to understand about secrets, about trust, about what happens when the past refuses to stay buried. Secrets are expensive. They cost you authenticity. They cost you connection. They cost you the possibility of actually being known and loved for who you are. The past always comes back. It doesn't matter how far you run. It doesn't matter how hard you try to forget. It doesn't matter how completely you try to erase it. The past finds you. The past catches up. The past forces you to deal with it. And when it does, you have a choice. You can face it or you can run from it again. You can reconcile with it or you can continue to be defined by it. You can integrate it or you can let it destroy you. He chose to face it. He chose to reconcile with his father. He chose to let go of the shame that had defined him his entire adult life. And she chose to believe in the possibility of redemption. She chose to see that her fiancé, despite his secrets and his running, was still capable of growth. She chose to postpone her wedding because she loved him enough to wait for him to become who he actually needed to be. That's courage. That's love. That's what it means to be a good person in a world where secrets are currency and truth is rare. I'll see you next time.